Good afternoon, RGEA members and guests. Welcome to today's webinar, North Carolina Legislature and You, Know and Grow RGEA's Advocacy, presented by Jack Cozart, Ashley Perkinson, and Tim O'Connell, all who have lobbied and worked for RGEA for years and continue to work hard for you to maintain the benefits you expect and deserve. I am Daryl Davis Fulmer and excited to serve as your host today. I also want to thank Tracy Eubanks for her technical support today as well. Before we begin this webinar, here are things you need to know. Each of you has been muted to help ensure the presenters can be heard. This presentation is being recorded. We will send you the link to the recording along with the PowerPoint in our follow-up email. For those of you who have sent questions, we submitted them to our presenters today, and many have been incorporated into their discussion as well. If you think of a question during the presentation, please use the Q&A button at the bottom of the Zoom page. Questions will be answered during the Q&A period, and if not, they may be answered before and particularly during the webinar. So today, without further ado, let's get started. Take it away, Jackson, Jack, Ashley, and Tim.
All right, Daryl, thank you so much. And we really appreciate and are humbled to be on this webinar today. And I want to give a really special thanks. I don't think she gets enough to Daryl herself, because for a lot, I believe it was during COVID, this was just an idea of hers to do a lunch and learn and a webinar to bring together retirees during a time of isolation. And she has really turned something that was just a tiny idea into a monthly event where hundreds of people register. And I know there's hundreds registered to view today. How many registered for the treasurers last month?
1,168, I believe.
1,100. So Daryl, I want to tip my cap to you. Thank you so much for allowing us to be here today. We are humbled to be here today. And also want to thank all of the members that are watching as well, especially all of the members, like Daryl mentioned, that sent in questions. Because we actually, like she said, use these questions to actually build this presentation today. So, obviously, we got a lot of questions about the COLA. We got a lot of questions about the late case. We got a lot of questions about citizen advocacy. And of course, a lot of questions about what is going to happen with the end of the year, with the budget, now that the legislature has gone home and there's a lot of question marks up in the air. So we're going to do our best to incorporate all those, to answer all those questions. So we're going to dive right in for the sake of time, because I would still like to leave 10 minutes or so to answer questions. So please, if you do have questions, shoot them in the chat, and we will try to address them at the end of the presentation. But to get right started, like she said, my name is Jackson Cozart. I am the Director of Government Relations here at RGEA. I've taken over this position since February. It's an absolute honor. It was part of the entire rebrand. My position did not exist last year, and so I'm very happy and honored to be here. But also Tim O'Connell, our executive director, also kind of put me in charge of not only this position, but the entire government relations team. And so I'd like to introduce you to some of them very quickly for those who don't know. And our newest addition is Miss Ashley Perkinson. I brought her on in February as well. And both of these two ladies and gentlemen right here are going to be on our panel today. Their resumes are so long, it would take too much time to talk about them, but I do want to hit some highlights. First, to talk about Ashley. She is a UNC undergrad and went to UNC Law School, so she is a double Tar Heel. She is on the UNC Alumni Association Board. She was 2011 Triangle Business Journal's top 40 under 40. And North State Journal ranked her as one of the top 25 lobbyists in the state. So we are very happy to have her on board with our organization, as well as a lot of you might recognize this gentleman over here. This is Jack Cozart. He has been a lobbyist for this organization for 25, 27 years. So he is no stranger to the issues and the problems and the successes and the failures of what is going on with retirees within our legislature. But before he took on this role, he was Governor Hunt's head legal counsel. He was an appellate court judge. He was AOC director. He has been ranked many times as one of the top ranked lobbyists in the state over the last 30 years. And he was 2015 NC State's Alumnus of the Year. So we got a big time Tar Heel and a big time Wolfpacker. And I went to Wake Forest University, so ACC tournament time gets a little interesting for our lobbying team. But this is our team. Wanted to introduce them to y'all as well for those who did not know who they were. So the big thing we're talking, or I'm going to talk about today first, is citizen advocacy. Why does advocacy matter? Well, first of all, it matters a lot because blatantly, it is very effective. Every single year, there are a couple instances where certain organizations will come together and they will advocate effectively with great results. However, if you don't advocate effectively, we see just as many instances in where it really hurts your cause as much as it helps your cause. So what we're going to go over today in general is how to advocate effectively to help our cause without hurting our cause. And also, as you see down there, it is also very important that we advocate because especially for teasers bonuses and teasers colas, in a perfect world, and I think Tim's going to get into this a little bit more, in a perfect world, we could get colas and bonuses every single year off of return and investments from the Treasurer's Department. More specifically, if we get a 6.5% average return over 3 years, we're going to get a cola for teasers and elders almost automatically. But unfortunately, those kind of returns have been few and far between for the last 10 plus years. So for teasers and elders, we can advocate for the legislature to give relief to teasers and elders. So, for just teasers. And so that's what we're going to go over today is how to advocate effectively. But before we start advocating, it's very, very important that you understand your legislature. You would be absolutely shocked how many people do not know who their House member is or who their Senate member is. We were at another advocacy event and where I was giving a presentation, I asked for people to raise their hand. Do you know who your House member and your senator, who they are? And only about 20% raised their hands. So first, before you start advocating, make sure you know who it is you want to advocate to. And then as you see, committee-shaped bills and a timing affects outcomes. Now, what do I mean by committees-shaped bills? One of the most common mistakes that I see is when groups come to advocate, they come the very last day when the bill is on the floor. To quote one of our good friends, Senator Metcalf, if the bill is already on the floor, the show is over. They already know how the vote's going to go. They're running it through. The most important time to start advocating is early on, especially when the bills go through committee. Once you're able to do that, you can really help and advocate on how you shape the bill if you really just get ahead of it. All right, so once you know who to advocate to and how to advocate, and when to advocate, let's go over the types of ways we advocate. Now, the two most common ways are phone calls and emails and in-person visits. And the ones I really want to touch on, and we're going to go into greater detail, are the phone calls and the emails. And then once you establish a relationship with this legislator, assuming you don't have one already, then we move more towards the in-person visits. And when we all believe that when an advocate is ready for they believe an in-person visit, please get in contact with one of us, one of our lobbyists, and we will happily try to set that up for you. But as a matter of fact, Tracy, can we put up a poll? How many people out there who are on the webinar right now have tried to contact your legislator either by phone or email? And we'll give about 15 to 30 seconds.
Yeah, they're coming in quick, Jackson, so it should
Coming in quick.
Longer. Yeah. So yeah, we'll give it just a second. Just a few more. Almost everyone has responded so far, so thank you for that.
All right. Well, appreciate it, everybody.
Sure.
And Tracy, how long till there it is.
You got it? Yep.
All right. So we have a very active group. We have 62% that have reached out to their legislators. That is absolutely great. And so, if hopefully today, after today, if you did not know how to do that, hopefully we'll be able to answer that question for you. But included to the phone calls and the emails and the in-person visits, you can also attend RGEA's advocacy events. And that is something I want to thank our members for. We had possibly the best advocacy day we have ever had. We had about 3 times the amount of turnout from our members that we had previously. And that's something that we really, really, really appreciate because those numbers really, really help. And of course, there's social media campaigns and call to actions. This is another thing this year which have just been drastically different for this organization than the last few years. Our social media, it's up hundreds of percent. Just people commenting, people sharing, and it really does move the meter on our advocacy down into the legislative building because people are starting to pay attention. The governor follows us. The Speaker of the House follows us. And so when we post things and when things are reposted and you guys comment, very important people are now starting to listen and see that. This is not true in the past. And then call to actions. We did a call to action earlier this year when the budget was going through the Senate. We had hundreds of people respond to our call to action with over thousands of emails sent to senators. It was the best call and the most effective call to action we've ever had. So just once again, a thank you to our members for the RGEA Advocacy Day. It was amazing. And for your response to our social media and your responses to our call to action. And so I'm going to pass it along to Tim.
All right. So I'm going to
slides.
All right. Thank you, Jackson. I'm going to speak specifically to our local government retirees out there. We have 2 systems, and I often get asked, what are you doing for local government? About 70% of my time, maybe 80% is working on local government. So I have delved deep into it. I had a career briefly in local government, working for Cary Parks and Recreation in the early days. So it's near and dear to my heart. So want to let you know what we are doing and how we're doing it and how you can help us with it. So understanding your pension, the key thing for local government is this is all you really need to be listening out for is what are the returns for the pension doing? So when Treasurer Briner is speaking on and sharing information on how the pension is doing, listen up. That is the lever for how local government retirees get their increases. The last increase was a bonus in 2022. That was actually earned in 2020, but delivered in 2022. So 6.5% is the number, the benchmark that the treasurer is going for in that. We share information out on this regularly in our magazine. On how it's doing, but it's a 3-year average. So listen out for that. We're looking for 6.5% over 3 years. The trustees, you often hear, and you'll hear different folks, if you call your legislature, say, well, we don't make that decision. The trustees do. The trustees do have that authority. It is given to them by the legislature. But it also, there's limitations on that. And the key thing on that is they can only give a COLA or a bonus if it has hit that 6.5% threshold for that 3-year average. Then they have the option to do either a COLA or a bonus. This information comes from what's called the actuarial reports. Actuaries are folks that do high-level calculations on forecasts and give that information to those trustees. And that is the trustee's sole source of information for that. And they make their decisions based upon that, with the limitation, knowing that it has to hit that 6.5% for the 3-year average. Okay, next slide, please. So here's, if you're in local government, here's how, best way to stay informed and to be a good advocate is watch those results. Each issue of Living Power magazine, we put the quarterly results for the performance in the magazine. We have an outside firm that validates the reports of the treasurer. It's an actuarial firm and that also does financial analysis. So look for those reports that are in the magazine, and we share that out. And then also the next thing you want to look at is the statutes. And this is an example of statutes do matter. They're not limited. Laws do change. 2020 was an important year because prior to that, if you were in the local government system, you were not eligible for bonuses. It just wasn't written. It wasn't written into the statutes. It was COLAs, only a cost of living adjustment, not a one-time pension supplement. So to give the trustees more flexibility, the law was changed for that. And that delivered that 2022 bonus that you received. So those are a couple of the areas that you should focus on. Specifically, it's General Statutes 128-27. I keep a copy on my desk. But those are some things that you should be looking at if you're in local government. All right, Jackson, back to you, sir.
All right. Thank you, Tim. Now, and I believe that this is one of the most important things when you begin advocating, and that is first and foremost, know your legislator, know who you are contacting. And you can't see it very well because our screen, our video is covering it up, but two sites I put, which are great to go to, are votesmart.org. That's the one I use the most because it'll tell you everything about your legislator, from where he's from to what he does for a living to where he went to school to organizations he's in. And so the more that you can learn about this legislator, the better. Like, so for instance, the top of the screen here is Representative Sheetzel. He's a Republican House member from Wake County. He's an attorney. He went to Duke Law School. But also before that, he was in the Marine Corps. And not only was he in the Marine Corps, he's also a musician. So the more things, like for instance, I was a musician. So when I get to meet with him, we talk about music to break the ice. So the more things that you can learn about your legislator to where you can make that personal connection to them, the better. Because keep in mind, they get tons and tons of calls and emails a day. So the more you get to know about them, the more successful and efficient you're going to be. It's also very, very important that you are as polite as can be to the staff, to their legislative assistant. They are kind of the gatekeepers as access to these legislators. So never forget that. It's always very important to also not only build the relationship with the legislator, but build the relationship with the legislative staff. And of course, be polite and patient, but also be persistent. If they don't answer you the first time, that does not mean that you cannot email them again. Do wait a significant amount of time. Don't email them every single day, but it is important that you are and continue to be persistent. And so also another thing that's very important is to know your issue. When you are going to advocate to a legislator, no matter how you advocate to them, whether it's in person, whether it's email, whether it's by phone, make sure that you've done your homework. Make sure you know exactly what you were talking about. Make sure you understand the policy. Like as Tim just kind of stated, for an elder to contact their state representative asking why there's not an Elder's COLA in the budget, it would probably not be very effective because they don't really have anything to do with putting, which is a common misconception. They don't have anything to do with putting Elder's bonuses and COLAs into the state budget. But once you do your homework, once you understand the policies, I found that it's very effective to use data and statistics. You can argue about policy all day, but it's really hard to argue with raw numbers. So the more that you throw these raw numbers out there, the more that you show what a lack of COLA that the teasers and elders have had, what a lack of bonus that they've had, just putting these numbers into your advocacy really, really helps. And then finally, and I think this is the most important part, if you take anything away from this entire presentation, when you advocate, tell your story. That is what legislators want to hear. uh, when you tell your story, it really puts a face and a name behind these statistics. Um, Make it very personal, but make it very clear. Make it brief, but make it very informative. But as you're telling your story, and let's use COLAs, for example, because that's the big one for this organization. You want to convey to your legislator how a COLA or lack thereof has affected your life. And not only how it has affected your life, but how it has affected the life of your community of retirees. Paint that picture for them. There's nothing better than when a legislator can put a number by a face and a name. So I think that's one of the most important things. And that's one of the most important things that I've learned being in this role. I've loved hearing everybody's stories as they've called up and told me, how a lack of COLA has affected their lives, because I've been able to take that down to the legislator, and it really does resonate with them. And so, but let's say that you already know your legislator really well, because we do have some retirees out there that have been politically active their entire lives. They already know them. I have found it very effective, and I'm sure my lobbying team would agree with me, that if you contact them to meet with them in their own districts, it's very effective. Legislators find it more personable. It's very effective. And also, when you go down to the legislative building, it is about busy as can be down there. You're going to be one person out of the day meeting with them, maybe out of 15 or 20. So you're going to have limited time. They're probably not going to have 100% of their attention on you because they got 30 or 40 other things happening that day. So when you can take the time to meet with them in their districts, it shows that, one, you're kind of going the extra mile, and two, you just get that extra level of attention as well. Okay, and so as I stated before, timing is everything. So it's important to learn the legislative calendar and how it goes, how a session runs. Like I stated earlier, it's much more effective to advocate early in the session rather than too late, and don't wait until the vote is on the floor. But speaking about how timing is everything, our organization is going to be doing another call to action soon. The Senate was the first to come out with their budget. We did not receive anything for teasers, no bonus or COLA in the Senate budget. But when the House came out with their budget, we received a 1% one-time bonus in 2025 and a 2% one-time bonus in 2026. And I know that's not a COLA. It's not exactly what we wanted. But it was still a $180 million appropriation from the House in a budget year, which has been very, very, very tight. So when I was going around and telling the senior appropriations chair, as well as the Speaker of the House, just thank you. I know there were lots of cuts. Thank you for not cutting us. The Speaker of the House actually got back in contact with our organization and told us, hey, do us a favor. When the timing is right, when we are deep in budget negotiations, we would like your organization to come out and support the House budget. And we told him we would absolutely do that. We're actually honored that he would ask us to do that, because it's just another example of how we're moving the needle. And it's through our social media, it's through our advocacy, it's through you guys, it's through our members being more active. Years in the past, Speaker of the House might not even known who we were. And this year we have both Treasurer Briner and the Speaker of the House asking our organization to endorse things that they're doing. Working with others. Teamwork amplifies your voice. We have seen that happen this year. We have seen it happen through not just our Advocacy Day. We have seen it through Daryl's Cabs. Those have been very great. Those have been very effective this year. I believe there's an organization in Winston-Salem called the Forsyth Cruisers. So we just really love the fact that this organization, RGEA, is really kind of bringing people together, not only inside the legislative building, but outside the legislative building, because these coalitions, and the more that these are exposed, the better our advocacy is. So lastly, kind of to wrap things up, there are many mistakes that can actually hurt your cause more than help your cause. And the first one is, don't assume that your legislator knows all the issues. Don't assume that your legislator knows that we haven't had a COLA in X amount of years. Don't assume that your legislator knows any other issue. Like, it's important that you also educate them very nicely about your issues, about what you have going on within your life, within your COLAs, within everything like that, and how it's affecting you. Because probably the worst thing that can happen, and we see this every year, is avoid coming at them with anger and avoid threats. It happens all the time. We have seen it happen multiple times this session. It's the biggest thing that can hurt your cause more than help it. Make sure you stay on script. When you have one or two things that you want to talk to your legislator about, stay to those one or two things. Do not go off talking to him about any other problem you have, whether it's in the federal government. It's important to stay on script. And most importantly, like I've said before, just be persistent. If they don't reach out to you or reach back out to you, just continue to reach out to them. Eventually, they will come around. So, are we ready to advocate? Here's 4 ways to get started. Contact your legislator. You can either do it through ncleg.gov or rgea.info/advocacy/find my legislator. We have a great site on our website that can take you right to them. You can also follow all of our current and past legislative updates at RGEA Info, News from Jones Street. Join our RGEA advocacy efforts and sign up for alerts at rgea.info. And thank you guys so much. That is my portion of the presentation. This is all of my contact information right here. Please, if you have a question, reach out. I send out a news from Jones Street every single week, both on Facebook and by email. And I've loved receive the feedback and the questions. And I try to answer every single person that contacts me. So please continue to contact me. It's been very important and it's really helped me do my job. But thank you guys. And I'm going to pass it on to Judge Kozort to talk about the history of COLAs and update the late case.
Thank you, Jackson. And thank you, Tim, Daryl, and Ashley. I'm thrilled to be on this program with you. And thank you, members of the association. You're the reason all of us do what we do. We're interested in you and your well-being. I am one of you. I joined the association a long, long time ago. And as Jackson noted, I've been an advocate for the association since 1997. So I'm coming up on 28 years now that I've been working with RGEA. And it's truly been a labor of love over the years. There are 2 things I want to cover in my time today. One is to go over a little bit of the history of our retirement systems and COLAs. I think you can get a better understanding of where we are today and what we need to look at today if you can put it in historical context and understand how we got to where we are today. And then secondly, I do want to present a brief update on the late case. That's the lawsuit that challenged a legislative reduction in healthcare benefits for retirees. I've served as the liaison with the law firm that's been handling that case on behalf of state retirees, and I'll give you an update on where we are with that and what's likely to come up in the future. North Carolina began establishing retirement systems in 1939. Most people don't realize that it goes back that far, but it does. And the first system that they created, the General Assembly created, was LEGRS, the Local Government Employees Retirement System. They established that system by statute in 1939, but the system did not become active until 1945. In the interim, the Assembly established teasers and the law enforcement officers system. And then over the years, they have created several systems for various classes of employees. Management of the systems was divided between the state treasurer and the state auditor in the beginning and for several years after the systems were established. Finally, in the 70s, they began moving everything into the treasurer's office, and gradually, by 1985, everything was moved into the treasurer's office, and the retirement systems division was created there to manage all of the retirement accounts. North Carolina has one of the largest retirement systems in the country, generally ranking in the top 10 nationally in numbers of people in the system. And we have generally had a defined benefit plan over the years. And that has been something that we have fiercely defended and have tried to keep. And while there are occasional rumblings in the legislature about changing to a defined contribution plan, there doesn't seem to be any momentum to try to make that change now. And we're happy about that. From the information I've been able to find, the General Assembly enacted the first COLA in 1971. And it was done to help offset the effects of inflation. And it was done for all of the different retirement system members. Early COLAs were generally pegged to the National Consumer Price Index, although occasionally there would be maybe a slight departure from that index. In 1986, for example, the legislature authorized a 4% COLA for both teasers and leggers, while the CPI nationally that year was only 1.1%. So for most years, from 1985 until about 2007, the General Assembly granted a COLA to leggers and teasers that was close to the CPI, and in most years, retirees in both systems received the same COLA. And the COLA became such a way of life, and I'll just give you a personal story about how much everybody relied on the COLA being enacted every year. I was a judge on the Court of Appeals, was in the Consolidated Judicial Retirement System, and we were eligible to retire at the age of 50. And so I left the court when I was 47. And when I turned 50, I met with one of the officials in the retirement systems division to talk about whether I should retire then or whether I should wait and retire at an older age when my benefit would be higher. And what I was told in the year 2000, when I turned 50, was you should go ahead and retire because you're going to get a COLA every year that's going to raise the retirement that you receive. And so that's what I did. And that's what happened until 2007. And that's when everything started to change. In 2008, you may recall that the entire country, including North Carolina, was in a serious recession. Nationally, the feds had to take action to rescue banks and car manufacturers. In North Carolina, several measures were taken to balance the budget. And you all will probably remember that a balanced budget is required under the North Carolina Constitution. So when the revenues don't measure up to provide all the services they want to provide, they've got to find a way to cut somewhere. And so there were several measures taken to reduce expenditures to balance the budget in 2008. And one of the things that was cut that year were COLAs. Teasers retirees received no COLA that year, and leggers members received 0.1%. And I don't know how much that would figure out to on a monthly basis, but I don't think it would have been very much. So that was the situation we were in 2008 in trying to balance a difficult budget. In 2010, the leadership in the General Assembly changed. And with that change, there became a lot of changes in philosophy in the General Assembly, and there was a change in the philosophy on COLAs. From that point going forward, COLAs would be few and far between. If the only source of funds to pay for the COLAs would be an appropriation from the General Assembly. Instead, the General Assembly took the position that generally COLAs should be based from earnings. It should be paid from earnings in the retirement accounts managed by the Treasurer's office. And as all of you know, you contribute to that money that's a part of your retirement account. From the time you began working, you contribute a portion of your salary each month, which was matched by your employing agency. And that went into your retirement account. And then all of it's lumped together for the Treasurer's office to make the investments. But unfortunately, the accounts there did not generate enough earnings to support COLAs. Thus, since 1985, the General Assembly has enacted only a few one-time bonuses, which are much cheaper than COLAs. And they've done it just for teasers and not for leggers because the two systems have been split apart for purposes of COLAs and bonuses. So that's where we find ourselves today. And that's why obtaining COLAs is very difficult, especially for leggers. Now, some of the information that I've shared with you today comes from charts and things that we've been able to find, which talks about the history of COLAs and consumer price index and those sorts of things. And they would have been too small for you to have seen very much as a slide for today's presentation, but we'll be putting some of those documents on the website for those who want to learn more and read more about how we got to where we are with COLAs. And then in a few minutes, Ashley can tell you what is our strategy for dealing with the philosophy that they have in the General Assembly now. And then briefly, let me bring you up to speed on the Lake case. Again, just a little bit of history. The lawsuit was filed in 2012 to protect teasers, retirees' health insurance benefits. It's just for the state and not for local, because for local employees, your health benefits as a retiree are provided by your local government agency that employed you. So the lawsuit was filed after the 2011 session of the General Assembly enacted a budget that stopped providing a non-contributory 80-20 plan for teasers retirees. Several years ago, not long after the lawsuit was filed, the trial court certified the lawsuit as a class action. And what that does is that it allows all retirees who are in a similar position as the named plaintiffs in the lawsuit to receive the same benefits if the plaintiffs win, so that you have only one lawsuit that covers 220,000 retirees instead of thousands and thousands and thousands of lawsuits. So that was determined, again, not long after the lawsuit was filed, that it would be a class action. And the case has been back and forth to our appellate courts. And it's even been to the U.S. Supreme Court once. The definitive ruling in the case came in March of 2022, when the North Carolina Supreme Court ruled that members of the class, and again, that's about 220,000 retirees, were entitled to receive premium-free benefits equivalent to whatever was in place when each retiree vested in the retirement system. And the Supreme Court remanded the case back to the trial court to determine whether the state had breached that promise to provide that coverage, and if they had breached it, to determine the resulting damages to the retirees. The case was set to go to trial in March of this year. And in the 3 years since the Supreme Court ruling, each side had been doing discovery, learning the facts about the case, to be able to present to the trial court their view on who was covered under what plan, what the possibility of damages were, and a computation of those damages. So a lot of time had been spent working with actuaries to come up with all that data for the trial court. So the case was set to go to trial in March of this year. But on the eve of trial, just before it started, literally the week before it was to start, the private law firm that's now representing the state filed a number of additional motions for the trial court to consider. And the most important motion that the state filed then was a motion to decertify the class. And that was something that had been settled in the case years and years ago. So the trial court denied that motion. But under North Carolina law and under North Carolina rules of appellate procedure, the denial of that motion is immediately appealable to the state Supreme Court. So after the trial court denied that motion, the state appealed the denial of the motion. So the appeal has gone back to the North Carolina Supreme Court. And it's hard to know what the timeline is there for that issue to be heard and for the case to come back to the trial court for further proceedings. I know at one point during the past 13 years, we had a matter that was on the desk of the Supreme Court for over 2 years while we waited for them to make a decision on one of the significant issues in the case. So we don't know exactly sure when it's going to be ready for trial again. We have a great law firm in Gastonia who is representing all of the plaintiffs in this case, and they've done fantastic work on the case. And your association has provided a lot of logistical and financial support to the attorneys to make the case possible, to get it to where it is now. So with those two summaries, I'll now turn the program over to Ashley and let her talk about what has happened in this legislative session and what we have coming up. So Ashley, it's all yours.
Thank you, Jack. Thank you so much for that very thorough background on the history of COLAs and also the update on the Lake case. It's great to be with you all this afternoon. And I was really excited for the poll and seeing those poll results, the strong advocacy effort that 60% of the participants have connected with their legislators. But that does leave 40% who either have not reached out or need more guidance on how to reach out. And so we are here, of course, to help support you in those efforts. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. So good afternoon again, Ashley Perkins. I've served as a lobbyist in North Carolina for 20 years, so for a while now, but this is my first session working with this association, and I am just thrilled to work with this team and really love the approach of proactive outreach to our state leaders. I love working with our legislators, their staff, and fellow lobbyists. And I'm here this afternoon to give an update on the 2025 long session. So the 2025 long session convened in January, and around 800 bills were introduced both on the House and Senate side. Of those bills, around a little over 75, I think we're up to 77, have become session law. So, a very small percentage of the bills that are introduced on both the House and Senate side end up becoming law. And I have to commend our state treasurer, Treasurer Briner. He has been, his team have been very effective in working with the legislature to get their priorities across the finish line. And I'm really thrilled that this association's leadership, that we've worked closely with their legislative liaisons and staff. They've got a great team. And as Jackson mentioned earlier, have had the opportunity to look at the legislation that they are wanting to move forward and provide feedback. And in some cases, that feedback has been accepted and changes were made. So it's really good to have that working relationship with the treasurer and his team. As I mentioned, a couple of the bills that the state treasurer worked to get through the General Assembly did pass. One of those bills is House Bill 506. That is now Session Law 2025-6, and that is the bill that would create the North Carolina Investment Authority. It was entitled the State Investment Modernization Act, and we saw support in both the House and Senate to get that through and adopted by the General Assembly and signed into law by the governor. And that does create that state investment team that will hopefully be made up of experts that will work to consult the treasurer on our state investments. And it's really great to see again the opportunity for feedback on that legislation. And that bill, in seeing that bill move forward, that bill does spell out with the investment authority the number of members, their responsibilities and duties, and also ethical obligations. So that bill is a very thorough bill spelling out the investment authority, those advisors, their responsibilities. There was also House Bill 476, and that was primarily a technical corrections bill that the state treasurer championed, primarily some statutory changes, but also some tweaks to the ABLE accounts that support individuals with disabilities, but primarily more of a technical corrections bill. So where we are with our state budget, as Jackson mentioned earlier, the Senate budget that was adopted earlier in the spring did not provide for the retiree bonus. However, the comprehensive House budget that was adopted did provide for that 1% one-time bonus in year one of the biennium and 2% in year two of the biennium. Following the adoption of the House and Senate budget, we did see the release and adoption of the Senate proposed mini budget and the House proposed mini budget. So where we are now, as far as the timeline with the long session, of course, we're in the middle of July. We don't have a state budget bill yet. And the House and Senate leadership are continuing to negotiate reforms to our tax structure. And that is a big item that the House and Senate are trying to negotiate. And really, that needs to come together before they agree on the various appropriation provisions. And then, of course, in the background as well, with the adoption of the federal big, beautiful bill that was passed by Congress, of course, that has implications to our state budget as well. So there will need to be negotiations at the state level to see what, if any, budget changes need to be addressed to help implement what cuts we could see from the federal government across the board with the passage of that bill. So with all that in the background, I just want to emphasize the importance of outreach to our legislators because there are a lot of priority issues that they are looking at. And in order to stay top of mind, we need that continued outreach to our legislators. And again, it's important to make sure you are reaching out to your individual House member and your individual state senator. And the outreach, of course, we encourage outreach to support COLA. And again, as Jackson mentioned, those personal stories are so impactful. In all the years that I have been lobbying, I have seen many bills that were introduced based on constituent feedback and input. So it really does matter for them to hear your voice. Another opportunity to reach out, it doesn't just have to be to ask for appropriations in the budget. It could also be to send a thank you. This session, we saw the introduction of House Bill 387, eliminate taxes for government retirees. That was a bill that was introduced in the House by Representative Sheetzel and Representative Honeycutt. So that bill was an opportunity to say thank you. That bill did not move forward, but it was a bill that was very friendly to retirees. And so we were supportive, and it was great to see that bill introduced. The House and Senate typically at this point in session adopt an adjournment resolution. The Senate put forth its proposed adjournment resolution, but the House did not agree. And so at this point, we do not have an adjournment resolution, but I do anticipate that we will see the legislature come back to Raleigh throughout the remainder of the year. Again, because we don't have a state budget that's been adopted this long session, they still have that work to do. And I think folks are still positive in hoping and thinking that we will end up with a budget bill this year. But your outreach and this team's outreach and proactive relationship building is really essential to make sure that when they do reach a final decision on the budget provisions, that retirees are included. So thank you for being on this call, and we're of course happy to answer any questions. And I know we have a few questions. I did want one tool that this team uses that I think is really helpful for members is the General Assembly website. And Jackson, would you be able to pull that up?
Sure. Can everybody see that?
Great. And really the items that I have mentioned can all be found on this website. And we don't have to click on the links now because I know we're getting short on time and we've got some questions to answer. But you will see the Find Your Legislators tab at the very top of the screen when you're looking at the screen at the top right. When I mentioned the number of bills that have become session law this year, that information is found under the Bills and Laws tab. You can scroll down to session laws, and that will show you. We'll just take a second. If you can go ahead and click on that, Jackson. You can scroll down and see every bill that has become law during this long session thus far. You can also look at the key committees, the committees that we really focus on. Of course, the Appropriations Committee. Those are standing committees in both the House and the Senate. And that link will take you to the full membership of those committees. And then also both the House and Senate have the pension and retirement committees that both of those are standing committees as well. And those are leaders that we work with on the issues related to retirees. All right.
All right. Well, Tim, do we have time for questions?
Yeah, absolutely. I've got a couple, and actually this is the number one question asked start with Cynthia, then Annette, then a couple of more people, so they want the answer, okay? So these folks live out of state. How can they advocate? What do you recommend for them?
Well, I would recommend almost the exact same way that you would advocate in state. You find where you worked, you find out who your legislator was, and then you would contact them using the same methods we described earlier. Judge and Ashley, I'd love to hear your comments as well.
And I would just add, and if you have friends and relations from the area of North Carolina where you did live before you moved, reach out to them and see if they are interested in also connecting with legislators so that you are connecting with someone who is a current constituent of that legislator's district.
I agree with both of those things, but I would also suggest that as an out-of-state person not living in North Carolina and not having a personal legislator now, go to the top. Let the Speaker of the House know your thoughts. Let the chairs of the Appropriations Committee know your thoughts. The same thing on the Senate side with the President Pro Tem and the Appropriations chairs. The more people you can contact, the more you can reach out, the more effective it becomes.
All right, I got the next one, and I'll put it out there, and I can jump in on it as well. How is the decision made to give a COLA versus a bonus?
Well, Tim, you want to go ahead and take that one?
Okay, just toss it. Okay, you guys can add in on it, but
Yeah.
it comes down to money, quite frankly. So the 6.5% threshold is the threshold for both Elgers and teasers. So reaching that is a key factor. The difference between when we're talking a bonus, a one-time supplement, and a COLA numbers for you, if you're Elgers, which you're looking at, a one-time pension supplement bonus is 20 million. If that was a COLA, a 1%, would approach 210 million. People ask, how does that math out? It's because it's calculated over a 12-year period. So it's not calculated for just that 1 year, but they run that through all the different variables for 12 years. So when you say a COLA, you're actually going a 1% for 12 years. For teasers, that number gets a lot bigger, a lot quicker. 1 year, because of the number of state retirees, is 57 million. And if that were turned into a 1% COLA, cost of living adjustment, that would be 210 million. So bonus, 57 million for teasers. A 1% COLA is 210 million. So the decision really comes down to, did the pension hit its threshold? And can it deliver those returns? And that's what the trustees and the actuarials make the recommendation on. The recommendation for the trustees, for the local government trustees, they actually make that decision, and that is them only. And then for the state system, that goes to the legislature. So the state trustees make that recommendation to the legislature and say, it looks like from our actuarial reports that there is money for a 1% COLA or a 1% bonus, or there is no money to do either of these.
Just to add a little bit about the money situation, and I talked a lot about the history, how many COLAs we had in the 70s and 80s and all that. You've got to remember that in those years, the number of retirees was fairly small when you look at the state as a whole. And so it didn't take quite as much in terms of resources to do a COLA back then as it does now. With the growth of the state, we've had a growth in the size of government, the number of retirees, and what you're dealing with are just ballooning costs for enacting things for retirees. And that's what I hear every time I go to the building. They say, but look at how much it costs. And that's why the investments by the treasurer and now his advisory team are going to be so important to us. You know, if we don't get those up to where they need to be, it's going to be almost impossible to get a COLA. So that's what has to happen now. And,
Yeah, I
we
think the
feel
judge
good
hit the
about Bronner where he is. He's really working with us on making sure that happens.
Yeah, I think the judge hit the nail on the head. When we get those investment returns from the treasurer, I believe we have a very, very, very good shot of getting a COLA for both teasers and Elgers. If it is a bad year in investment returns, the best we can possibly do down at the legislature is the bonus for teasers, because the state budget does not affect Elders. So yes, we are very reliant on the treasurer these days.
And I'll just mention as well, for those of you on social media, the treasurer did just post that it was a positive first 6 months of the year. And so it's helpful when you're wanting to be more engaged in advocacy to make sure you're following our state treasurer on social media, and also make sure that you are getting your legislators' newsletters and following them on social media as well.
Yep. Okay. Here's a question. This is from Samantha. Will we ever get back to COLAs annually for both teasers and Elgers?
I'll take a crack at that one and let y'all jump in. The answer is with good investment returns from the treasurer. If he or she in the future can continue to hit that 6.5%, which I am hopeful that given the right tools that Treasurer Briner that COLAs for both teasers and Elgers can become more of a normal thing rather than an outlier. But if the returns are not what we hope that they can be, then we're going to be more just reliant on sadly just one-time bonuses for the teaser system through the legislature.
Yeah. Overall, here's the next question. Here's one from Raymond, was asking about the historical performance. Historically, North Carolina has been a very conservative state. It has not hit the average of other public peers, which, you look over about the 10-year period, it's about 7.4%. So we've been running below that number, but we are internally very, I guess, pleased at the direction that Treasurer Briner is moving some things. So we feel more confident that will come. Over the past 3 years, last year, I believe I don't have the number right in front of me, but I think we did about 5.2%. So we need to kind of definitely do better. But again, really good, strong, positive numbers for the first 6 months. And that's that's some great news to be hearing, because it's been we all know it's been quite a turbulent market lately, and Treasurer's team seems to be doing some good work there. So follow the Treasurer, and then be sure to look at Living Power. We just, the one that's about to come out, we had just put the first quarter results, so which we knew was just first quarter. But it looks like this second quarter was a very positive one for the Treasurer, so that's good news. All right. Let me see.
Tim, we're after the 1:30 mark. So is there one more question, or do we want people to
and you know
wait
what,
for
Daryl?
about 5 minutes?
It's for you, Daryl. I was saving the best for last. Okay.
No,
So we have a friend from Harnett County going, how can I get in touch with my coalition? Would you know, Daryl?
Yes, I would know. I know you're headed toward Tim. Contact me at Daryl at rgea.info. And if Tracy, if you would stick that into the chat, and my email address is always at the end of all of the notices that you receive about our lunch and learns. And then Jackson has left his contact information up on the screen, govrelations at rgea.info. And he even left a phone number, 919-417-7216. So if you have any other questions, if you want to know how to get in touch with us, or if you need more information about the legislature, we will certainly refer you to the right person to get the information to you. So please do that. And we really appreciate you all staying on for a few extra minutes. Tim, is there any other burning question that you have before I close this out?
No, really good questions. So thanks for asking them. And we really appreciate you all being members and being advocates. So thanks for joining.
Yes, that is really good. And thank you again, Judge Jack and Jackson and Ashley and Tim. We really appreciate you being with us today. And this is good stuff, as my brother would say. So, just a couple of reminders. We have a survey that we will put into the follow-up email that will come out in the next couple of days. Please fill that out by Friday. It's quick and easy. We really need your feedback. And the feedback that we receive every month, we really take that to heart. So our next Lunch and Learn webinar is entitled Eating the Mediterranean Way. We all need that, right? Nutrition to keep you healthy. It's scheduled for August 13th from 12:30 to 1:30. And this is a fantastic opportunity to pick up some practical nutrition tips. So please join us. Jill Davis from Humana will no doubt bring some expert insight to the table, no pun intended, and we will send you the link. So once again, thank you for joining us, and as always, the association stands ready to assist you in your retirement. And another shout out to our phenomenal panelists today. Thank you so much for bringing this to our attention. Happy Wednesday, everybody, and stay safe.